Hold on to your radio hats. We are about to embark on an unparalleled excursion on today's Chris Fabry Live. I've invited 6 friends to join me to respond to this. Give me one lesson you've learned and one memory from Moody Radio. You're going to hear Gary and Monte and Jim and Tricia and Bill and a mystery guest today at the Radio Backyard Fence. That's the plan. Let's see what we can accomplish. Welcome to our cavalcade of guests celebrating 100 years of Moody Radio. First, we thank our team. Ryan McConaughey doing all things technical. Tricia's our producer. Lisa is in the chair today. Josh will be answering your calls. And since it's Friday, that's right, it's time for the fabulous Fabry Friday Sigh. Here's what it does. 1, we oxygenate your blood. 2, we get your endorphins going. 3, we raise your serotonin level. 4, we promote lymphatic drainage. And 5, we stimulate your parasympathetic system. That's why we call it 5 lung languages. We also stimulate your vagus nerve. We help you release acetylcholine. And don't you dare forget what it does to cortisol dissipation. Take in 4 seconds of air through your nose right now. Hold it 4 seconds. And then as you release that air through your mouth, push on the left side of your rib cage to get rid of all that bad carbon dioxide. Give a sigh today for the biblical lessons we learned through the teaching of A.W. Tozer, Warren Wiersbe, Erwin Lutzer, George Sweeting, Joe Stoll, Mark Jobe. Give a sigh for the fond memories you may have of driving your kids to school and turning on the morning program and hearing from the back seat, "Mom, do we have to listen to this?" Give a sigh for the memories of the voices of Bev Shea and Evie and the Jack Schrader Singers. Give a sigh for the Friday Night Sing and the Sunday Night Sing and Ranger Bill, Warrior of the Woodlands. Today's fabulous Fabry Friday Sigh is brought to you by the new book by Kevin and Phil. This is Moody Radio, available for you right now, friend. All rights reserved. I start with that encouragement. You've got to get this book because you will see pictures of many of the guests that we're going to have on today. It's a beautiful celebration of God's faithfulness through the years. I'd love to send you a copy. If you go to chrisfabrylive.org, scroll down, give a gift, be as generous as you can. We'll send it to you. Thank you, Andre from Ann Arbor, who said this: "I hope my gift offsets the cost of the book." Yes, Andre, you did that and then some. Thanks for your generosity. Go to chrisfabrylive.org or call us at 866-953-2279, 866-95 Fabry, and thanks for your support of the Radio Backyard Fence. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this all week. One reason is because I get to talk with Gary Leonard, who worked for Moody Radio from 1971 to 2014. He was an announcer in Chicago. For a number of years, he hosted Sunday Praise. His voice is so recognizable to those of you, especially in Spokane, because he was station manager of KMBI for many moons. In fact, you were there in Spokane pretty much at the start, weren't you, Gary?
I was here before the start, as a matter of fact. I came, by the way, in the middle of Expo 74, which was the World's Fair, and actually had to put together a staff or help put together a staff and, meet pastors and Christian leaders all over the city, and at the same time and kind of enjoy the World's Fair. So it was a busy time.
Yes. Okay, so I've asked you for a lesson and a memory in any order. Go for it.
Okay. Probably one of the most significant memories is the time when our staff first gathered, and we met together, and we were all in such a wonderful frame of mind and heart, because we all felt that God had put it together and had led us to that place. And it was a feeling that I don't think I ever totally felt again. It was just marvelous.
So the camaraderie that you had, standing shoulder to shoulder, working along with other people for this shared vision of having a station in Spokane that aired Moody Radio, that you did there locally too, right?
Yes. And it was such a joy to see people come together and do the job that they've been called to do. And I think, there were certainly challenges. There was no doubt about it. We had equipment challenges. We had, some hard times figuring out various things that we needed to be doing, all those things. But really, we saw the Lord work in many ways.
Yes. And here's the other thing. Working at a Christian organization, it's like, well, there's not going to be any friction. There's not going to be any disagreement at all. That's not true, but you work them out. You work together to work it out, right?
Exactly, yes. And I think the best thing was that certainly once a week we set aside a time to study the Bible and then pray together. And I think that just melded us into a staff that was very cohesive, certainly at those beginning times, and that was terribly necessary.
What is the lesson you've learned?
That we learn to trust God even in the midst of challenge that we don't think we can handle. And I think we found that as a staff, we found it individually as well.
So total dependence on him. And when you say that, I always think, first of all, because this is my struggle, is financially. You got to have the financial backing, and if God doesn't show up through his people, you can't keep going, right?
You're very right. And of course, that was a major challenge throughout my time. But we started out well. I think God supplied as we went along, not totally abundantly at first, of course, but there were many people who loved the previous station. By the way, the previous station was KCFA, and the little slogan was "Keep Christ First Always." And one of the things I faced was many people called me and said, "You changed the call letters. It was Keep Christ First Always, and now it's something else."
Yes.
And,
yes.
I had to explain, I didn't do it. Moody Bible Institute did, because that's, what the KMBI is, Moody Bible Institute.
Yes. Gary, it's a real treasure to get to talk with you today. Thanks for your memory. And that speaks to us today. Thanks for that lesson about full dependence on God. God bless you, friend. Thank you for your service to Moody Radio and the Kingdom.
Well, thank you, Chris, and it's a joy to be with you.
Next up, I got 6 voices. Let's see if we can get to all 6 of them. For more than a decade, Monte Larrick has been the voice behind the Illinois Family Institute, serving as Media Affairs Director since 2014. Last year, they gave him the Voice of Truth Award for his faithful service. Before that, however, he spent some 30 years as a senior news correspondent with Moody Radio, won a lot of awards for his news coverage there. Monte, how you doing today, friend?
Oh, I'm fine and dandy, Chris.
Okay, so do you still drink Kona Blend coffee?
I do. I absolutely do. Yeah.
And do you still believe that big coffee company roasts their beans too long?
Yes, I do.
I know you. I know. So Monte, Greg and I, we had Greg on earlier. Monte was our newsman, and we put him through the ringer because we would always go to news late. It's supposed to be 5 till we go to Monte. And Monte was lucky if we didn't go to the top of the hour and and throw it to him. So apologies for all of those days when we were late, Monte.
Oh, okay. I think I'll forgive you after all these years.
Okay, so I'm asking for a lesson and a memory. What order do you want to go in?
Maybe a memory. I would say I remember some of the great team members we had at Moody Radio. And in particular, I think of Bob Murphin, Donald Cole, Jim Warren, Walt Carlson. They really stand out to me. Of course, Bob and Don were World War II combat veterans who served our country with courage and valor. Their lives and message helped lead people to Christ. Jim was a Moody broadcasting trailblazer with Primetime America. And Walt Carlson was my mentor in the newsroom, and he gave me a lot of advice, but in particular, he told me to give listeners news, our listeners in particular, news that they cannot hear anywhere else. Localize the news with Christian insights, what's happening in our local culture, how the church and parachurch organizations we're responding to crime, issues pertaining to the protection of life, fatherless children, education, of course, the list goes on.
Yeah. I was thinking of you and Walter because I've seen pictures of you in the newsroom there with him. And Stan Ferris worked toward the beginning of your time. I think you might have crossed paths with Stan a little bit.
Yeah.
And Walter. So there is your memory. Before we get to the lesson, every time I think of you, you know who I think of? Tim Simonson. Tim was your roommate at Moody. Became a police officer and lost his life in the line of duty. And I when I see you and hear your voice, I think of Tim.
Well, Tim was, an excellent police officer, but, he also had a ministry with young people there in Joliet. And he was one of a kind, let me tell you.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I never got to meet him, but I kind of have through the friendship that we've had through the years. All right, so there's Monte Larrick. We've got a lesson coming from Monte, but let's take a quick break and come back. We're going to hear the rest of Monte's lessons, and then we're going to go to a man named Jim who was pivotal in my own life and the ministry of Moody Radio. That's what we're talking about. Moody Radio, 100 years, more of the celebration straight ahead on Moody Radio. Lessons and memories from Moody Radio through the years. We talked with Gary Leonard in the first segment. Monte Larrick is here. When I hear Monte's voice, I just think news. He's got that gravitas. And so we're asking about lessons and memories that each of our guests have. And if you go to chrisfabrylive.org, scroll down, you'll see the book. This is Moody Radio. Monte Larrick's face is all over the place in this book. You got to get it. And our next guest is as well. Yes, they did. This is Moody Radio. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. Monte, what is the lesson that you learned? You mentioned one with Walt Carlson just a minute ago.
Well, I would say when it comes to news, be factual, be fair, and objective as you can be. And for me, objective is through the lens of a Christian who understands that Christ can solve a lot of the problems that man and government have created. And I went into newsmaker interviews with the thought that I was representing Moody Radio listeners. I wanted to ask the questions that they would want me to ask, because after all, they supported the ministry of Moody Radio and Moody Bible Institute.
Yeah. And you did that. And you accomplished that. Yes. Yeah. And you had a lot of fun with us in the morning too. So thank you for coming along. I remember It's a Wonderful Station we did. It was Wonderful Life. And Monte played the voice of Mr. Potter. And one of these days we'll replay that. Monte, God bless you. Thank you for doing this today.
Yes, it was a pleasure. And Chris, you were always a joy. And you helped turn my hair gray. So
a good lunch to you, friend.
A good lunch to you, my friend. Take care.
Monte would always say that. Always at the end, and a good lunch to you. And then he'd go into the news. All right, here's another person who is now chief of media operations at Hope Media Group. He worked at Moody Radio from 1985 through 96, graduate of Moody, joined Way FM 20 years ago, was the assistant manager for WMBI when Greg and I did the morning program, so we put him through the ringer too. He hosted Radio School of the Bible for a season, engineered Primetime America, and every day, Jim Marshall, your words come back to me. The lesson I learned from you and have had to relearn through the years, the phrase I remember is, think like a listener. Think like a listener. I can't tell you how many times I've said that to myself and other people. So, Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. And, that lesson, I think of it in my own life, too. Just think like a listener. It's so easy for us in media to take an inside baseball view, and the listener's just now coming to the conversation. And so to flip it around like that and think of it from their perspective, I think it serves all of us well. So I'm glad something I said, Chris, something stuck with you. So.
It sure did. Jim and I have West Virginia. We went to Marshall University and then came to Moody, not together, but we were there pretty much at the same time. So what is a memory or a lesson from Moody? Go.
Well, yeah, I think one of the things I take away, I could list a lot of things actually during my time there, but the thing that really jumps out to me is the people and just the way they cared for one another. And I'll give a very specific example. Your listener may or may not know the name of Bob Neff, but Bob was a leader at Moody Radio's vice president of broadcasting. He's gone home to be with the Lord several years now. But when I was there first starting as a part-timer, kind of way down the food chain, I remember how Bob, vice president of broadcasting, a big wheel in my eyes, I remember how he treated me. He treated me almost like a cohort, a contemporary, just engaged me, was interested in my life, took time. What a lesson. And it's something that in my own management style now, leading people, I think back at how I felt the way Bob interacted with me, and I want the people I interact with to feel that way as well. So just a wonderful memory, Chris. And again, faces and names jump out at me from my time at Moody Radio, but the way Bob interacted with this part-timer has stuck with me in my whole life.
Yeah. And that's a lesson on both the positive and negative, because you can treat people not that way, So what is your lesson that you take away from Moody?
Well, I think, you mentioned this. I worked on the production / technical side for a while there, as well as later being on the air. But Moody did things with excellence in the technical arena, and I don't think just a lot of people realize how much thought, how much effort goes into making the product excellent. And I think a lot of people pursue excellence. They worship at the altar of excellence more out of pride or ego. But for Moody, I took this away, that you don't want your lack of production or shoddy workmanship to detract from your message. And I have taken that with me. It's a lesson that I carry today, that you don't pursue excellence just for the sake of excellence. You don't want some imperfection in what you're doing to detract away from this life-changing message that we're trying to communicate. And Moody did an excellent job at that. They did things well technically, and that's a great lesson. You don't want there to be a distraction because we were lazy or just phoned it in. We gave our all when it came to technical excellence.
Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. You're right.
Amen.
That's
Amen.
it. Jim,
Yes.
and you've taken that with you. And in a sense, Moody, it wasn't because of Moody that you're doing what you're doing, but it was a launching pad for you, and you allowed all of that learning to take you to where you are and beyond. And I thank you.
God, yeah.
God
used that chapter so much, Chris, and not only friendships that developed and were cultivated, but just learning how to do things, how to interact with people, and to set the bar high for excellence.
Yeah, and treat them with kindness. I love that story about Bob Neff, and I
Yes.
believe it. Yeah. God bless you, friend. Keep doing what you're doing, and come back and see us real soon, okay?
Great speaking with you, Chris. Tell Andrea and the family we said hi.
You do, Reba and the kids the same. And we aren't kids anymore. We cannot conduct a Radio Lessons and Memories program without including a senior producer on this program on Equipped and Open Line, Tricia McMillan. She's a graduate of Moody Bible Institute as well as Moody Theological Seminary. Tricia, what's your answer to my question?
So my first lesson actually started in high school, but was not ended until I got to Moody Radio. So we were simulcasting a basketball game on AM and FM. and anyone who's ever simulcasted and had to do stuff split, it messes with your brain. So I was trying to sign off the AM because it was evening. I was a high schooler. I was 16 years old. And I had been told, here's your checklist. It wasn't written down, but I knew how to do it. I'd done it before. And I do the whole thing. I get AM signed off, and then I switch back over to put FM on the board. And nothing is on the air. Alarms are going off. I don't know what's going on. People are calling the radio station. I don't know what's going on. And then they would hear the 30 seconds that the announcer giving the play-by-play was hearing. And my boss is calling. I'm in tears. And he talks me through getting it back on the air. Come to find out, I did not learn until I got to Moody Radio when I understood actual signal flow that it's more than a checklist. When I understand, my lesson is, when I understand the why, I'm a lot more helpful. So I'd been given the list and I missed one of the main things, and that was the FM, I think, was broadcasting in audition, and the AM was in program, and I was assigning both to those, and I would send it down audition for the on-air host to hear, and that's why you could hear that spot. But I did not understand that until I got to Moody Radio and was taught some of the behind the scenes of the whys and the whats and all of those and running a board.
And it all came together.
It all came together. I was like, that's why at the radio station it didn't work. And so that's my first lesson. My second lesson is always have a backup. This could be a backup guest, a backup phone number, a backup topic, a backup audio for a full program or a clip or something. Always be prepared with a backup because you will need it. And then my third one is authenticity and vulnerability on the air translates to listeners reciprocating that. They get that connection in a unique way when the host is authentic and vulnerable. The listener will call in with their vulnerabilities and they feel comfortable and safe doing that. We hear that all the time on Chris Fabry Live, that listeners will do that. And I think you have modeled that for them, Chris. And that life, though, that you're experiencing then off of the radio spills onto the radio when you do that, and vice versa. And so in my life, my memory is like that, and the radio flows into your life. And for me personally, I met my husband at Moody Radio. Through the conversations that were happening on the air, we deepened our friendship, which deepened even more into love. And then that relationship actually got shared on the air. I think all of our dating and married life and having babies, all of that was on the air at some point. It didn't all happen on the air, but the stories were on the air. My baby's first cry and announcing that I was engaged and, all of the things in between. My husband was on the air. He produced this program for a time. Yes. And so that radio and life off of the radio for me has been a very special memory. Friendships off the air were an outflow of what was happening on the air, but then relationships being formed from what I was learning and talking about on the air, deepening existing relationships.
I go back to 2008 when you and Joel came out to set up the studio for me, and you stayed in our house.
Yes.
And spent a lot of time with Caitlin. Caitlin was like a little,
She was 10.
Little bug next to you. But and you were on the phone, and you were calling back and forth with Nate, and you were having all of these questions. Do we? And the struggle of that, it wasn't a real big struggle, but you still had questions. Is this the best way for me to go? And that was all a part of the very beginning of the program. And then you got married then in October, right? Yeah,
we got married in October. We got engaged in June. That summer. And so we came on the air and shared the story. And so, so all of you listeners have been a part of our story as well. And you, Chris, and your wife, Andrea. And so, radio is very intertwined in my personal life too.
It is a family thing. Moody Radio is a family through the good times, the bad times, the hard stuff, the high points. This is so much fun. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. 6 guests who have lessons and memories through Moody Radio. I asked on Facebook, give me one lesson you learned by listening to Moody Radio. Debbie, if I've asked God to forgive my sin, I also need to receive that forgiveness, to forgive myself and live in that. Greg said, when someone is grieving the loss of a loved one, ask the name of that friend or family member. That's really good. Karen said, how to share my faith. Paul Little, he was the radio pastor before Don Cole And Paul wrote that little book, How to Give Away Your Give Away Your Faith. So thank you, Karen, for remember that. And then another one, that God loved me and I have a job in his kingdom. I like that lesson learned. I have 2 more guests for you before we end today. And when we come back from break, I want you to hear my pal Bill. But I do want to also tell you, if you want to see the pictures of some of the people we're talking with here today, this is Moody Radio. 100 years proclaiming the gospel is our thank you this month. Give a gift of any size. If you can be generous as you can, do that. But I'd love for you to be able to see this. This is Moody Radio. Go to chrisfabrylive.org. Scroll down. You'll see how to give a gift and get a copy of the book. chrisfabrylive.org. More straight ahead on Moody Radio. Moody Radio, Lessons and Memories. That's what we're talking about. I have 6 guests for you. We've heard from 4 thus far: Gary Leonard, Monte Larrick, Jim Marshall, Tricia McMillan. And I've asked you that question, what lesson have you learned from Moody Radio, on our Facebook page? Would love to hear from you. Just go to chrisfabrylive.org and link to our Facebook page. And again, this great book that we're given all this month in celebration of 100 years of Moody Radio. This is Moody Radio. It's our thank you at chrisfabrylive.org. Bill Davis retired about 3 years ago, March of 2023. He spent 41 years with Moody Radio in a lot of different roles. As announcer, you heard his voice on the morning program in Atlanta, engineering, produced, he wrote scripts. He's been an active freelance voiceover artist in both Chicago and Atlanta, hosted Faith on Record, co-hosted Living a Legacy with Crawford. You and Dee have been married it's been more than 40 years now, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Very well. We're coming in on 41.
41, okay.
41.
All right. I knew it was 40 in a few months anyway.
Yeah, well, you hit
Bill,
it right. Good.
Now, what do you think, so far from what Gary, Monte, Jim, and Tricia have said, anything resonate with you?
Oh, yes, all of it. All of it. It's so great to hear from these folks, all of us with our own perspectives of Moody Radio over the years. And it's been one. We need 5 more hours of this. So can you kind of stretch it out there a little bit?
I agree. Well, and the other thing is, if you, from what Tricia was saying and Jim too, if the person behind the microphone is not growing, it's hard for show your listeners how to grow. If you're not into the word, and if you're not have your foundation there, it's hard to tell them how to live, and what to do. And so you need to evidence that. So what's a memory or a lesson from your own life?
Well, I'll pick it up from what you just said. That was going to be my lesson learned. In Christian radio, it's never about becoming an on-air rock star. It just isn't. If that's your motivation, then pride and human frailty will cause you to eventually crash and burn. Christian radio, as I've learned, bears the responsibility of presenting the gospel in order for God to draw lost sinners to himself. And I've learned that for many listeners, Christian radio announcers, program hosts like yourself become on-air brothers and sisters in Christ to challenge and encourage. And, Chris, at the heart of it, there's really nothing super special about the program hosts and announcers you hear. And I'm not just talking about Moody Radio. I'm talking about Christian radio in general. These folks are human beings. They bring with them all the possibility of weakness and failure. And believe it or not, many of your favorite hosts struggle with inferiority issues, even though they project a very strong persona on air. In reality, some are hard to get along with. There's
why are you looking at me?
Yeah, kind of hoping you'd get that, Chris. Good job. No, I'm not talking about you. But so what I've learned primarily is this: to be in radio, particularly Christian radio, and receiving all the accolades that come with that, please understand that we're subjected to a very high degree of accountability, which must be undergirded by the power of the Holy Spirit.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, I was a little offended when you said there's nothing special about us, but what you're saying is true, because one of the things that it comes back to me is I pray this just about every day. Get me out of the way. I don't want to get in the that you're, so if it's my ego, if it's my penchant to talk too much, get me out of, help me to see that so I can get out of your way of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And as Trish said, you must be authentic. You can't come to a microphone or a program or anything else trying to be something you're not. And it's all right to reflect on and to admit the failures that we all have. Yeah. And it puts us on the same level. Again, we're not on pedestals as announcers and program hosts. We're fellow believers struggling through this journey, enjoying victories and upset when defeats happen. But that's the nature of our humanness.
Yeah. Okay. That was the lesson, right? Or
yeah, that was the lesson.
Okay. What's the memory?
I thought long and hard about this. I have about 40 of them in 41 years of radio. There's quite a few. Let me mention about our special live programming over the years. Now, this would be, I'm referring to our remote setups in various cities across the country, thinking about a coverage of InterVarsity's Urbana conferences in Illinois, our live coverage of Promise Keepers events. We would often have the day of prayer coverage. Years ago, we would do election night coverage. And these live events really brought our on-air teams and audio support teams together in a very special way. As Jim said, always pursuing excellence in our broadcasts in order to reach believers and non-believers in the most effective ways. And our share events, as they developed over the years, Moody Radio would often send a few of us from the production services department to our outside stations around the country, places like St. Petersburg, Florida, Boynton Beach, Florida, Dixon's Mills, Alabama, the Quad Cities, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We would help them out with the production support because for our outside stations, particularly, share was a big deal. It required a lot of help from volunteers and technical support. So our role as audio production support was to free up the local announcers so they could really concentrate on speaking to listeners during share instead of having to run all the controls and all that. So for us Chicago folks, it was a great time for us to get to know our local partners much better.
Yeah. Let me add a couple of things to the live events. Youth Congress. Do you remember Youth Congress in the 80s? Amsterdam, the Billy Graham Conference for Itinerant Evangelists. There was a Congress on the Bible that I remember, Chuck Colson in D.C., that we traveled to. And then the National Religious Broadcasters Conventions, there would be times when we would broadcast live from there as well. So you're right. And all of that costs. There's a cost of the travel and getting the equipment there.
Absolutely.
And driving overnight in a van and all of that. But you're right, working side by side with people. I think of the Youth Congress, it is really hot out there on the mall. Doing all those things. But when you sweat together with other people to bring that kind of audio back to the listeners who are not there and can't be there, that's gold, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the opportunity to get in there with the listener. So much of what we do is on this side of the microphone, looking at the walls of a studio and imagining the people we're talking to. But these events let us get out there with them as they enjoyed the conferences. And then we got their reactions to what they were hearing. I always enjoyed that. I remember one Promise Keepers in Chicago that I was helping to cover. I had the microphone out in the stadium, and it was a time of invitation, and they invited the men who were making decisions to come forward and join hands. Well, I was in the middle of that. It was like a forest. It was unbelievable just being in there with these hands all above you. And that is a memory I'll never forget.
Think about Founders Week. That's another, even though it was right there at Moody, or Pastors Conference. And hearing all of these pastors sing, these bass and baritones, sing these verities, there's just something about that. And Moody Radio has been privileged to be able to do that through the years. And Bill, you've been a big part of that. Thanks for joining us today. Absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Chris. There he is, Bill Davis. Now I have one final guest, a mystery guest who's coming up. And when we start this last segment, you are going to hear his voice singing. We're going to do that straight ahead. This is Chris Fabry Live, Lessons and Memories of Moody Radio. And boy, howdy, can I send you a copy of This is Moody Radio, 100 Years Proclaiming the Gospel. It's our thank you this month. You can find out more about it at chrisfabrylive.org, chrisfabrylive.org. Who is the voice that's coming next? Find out straight ahead.
It's the Sugar Creek Gang a-walking down the road. The Sugar Creek Gang that we all know. There's Big Jim, our leader, and Little Jim, our pal. There's circus and poetry, the athlete and the clown. And if you notice someone with eyes so round and keen, that's Dragonfly, the funny guy who sees important things.
Okay, do you know who that voice is? That voice is a man who graduated Moody Bible Institute, worked at the Institute in several different roles. He was a producer, station manager. He hosted the Sunday Night Sings, the Friday Night Sings. For more than 20 years, worked in public relations and conference ministries, stewardship, retired in 2011. His name is Jim Wick, and he is joining us now. Jim, when you hear that voice,
Chris.
when you hear you going high there like you did, what goes through your mind?
That was a long time ago. I know that. I can never do that now.
Yes. Do you remember who played the guitar on that recording?
You know, I don't. I thought it was Stan Ferris, but he told me he didn't do it, so I have no idea. I don't remember. We did that so long ago.
And your voice is just so much there. As a matter of fact, let me play for those of you who are long-term listeners to Moody Radio. You remember Jim when he would say things like this.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Sing, live radio from the campus of Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. I'm your host, Jim Wick. Our featured guests tonight are Jerry Williams and Ed Kerr, better known as Harvest. Tim Ostrander's leading our singing. Beth Nagley and Larry Shackley are at the organ and piano. Also assisting are the Jack Schrader Singers and the Mark Streeter Band. Well, that's our crew, and we're all glad to have you with us for another Friday Sing here on the Moody Broadcasting Network.
So join us for the Friday Night Sing. Jim, you had, and there was Harvest, I think that was from 1986. You had an awful lot of fun with hosting those, interviewing people in the audience, and other things, right?
Right. I think we had more fun doing interviews with the audience. I had no idea what to expect. You know, when you're live on radio, you're really taking a chance when you stick a microphone in front of somebody you don't know. And we had some interesting experiences on the Sing with some of the folks that we interviewed. But folks really seemed to enjoy the Sunday Night Sing, which became Friday Sings. Had great crowds always.
Yes, and the positives, the deep soul positives of singing these hymns together. There's something about that, right?
Yes, I miss that. That's one of the things that I really miss from my days at Moody Bible Institute, where the chapel services, Founders Week, when we as a tremendous congregation would sing together these great gospel songs and hymns. I still remember that and how meaningful that was to me.
Yeah. It is so good to hear your voice. I have to, before your memory and your lesson, I have to say, because Jim Marshall mentioned Bob Neff and how he was instrumental in just treating him like a colleague, you know, even though they were in different spots. I remember, I asked Andrea this. I said, do you remember going to the Wicks house? I said, was it Thanksgiving or Christmas? She remembers everything. She said, no, Thanksgiving, my parents came up. This is when we were students at Moody. And and she said, we went for Christmas to Jim's house, and I still remember Steve taking us to his room and saying, and I should have known this, he had this present, and it was his engineering for his studio. You know, he had a little studio there in your house.
That's right.
He was doing exactly what he's doing now when he was just a teenager.
That's right. When he started that when he was in junior high school, I think. He set up a little radio studio in his room, and then he put speakers all around the house. I came home one day from work, and my wife was quite upset. And she said, "Go up in the bedroom. We had hardwood floors." And he had drilled a hole through my hardwood floor and run a wire through and set up a speaker in the bedroom up there.
I didn't know that. That's
Yes.
that's a fireable offense right there, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so
we got
a
over it.
memory or a lesson from Jim Wick. What do you say?
Well, I think a lesson first. Really, one of the things that I really learned. I came from a very humble background in the very southern tip of South Texas, where I grew up. I was not familiar with Christian radio at all. In fact, I wasn't even familiar really with Moody Bible Institute. I was told about the Institute by an evangelist who came to our little church down there where I was leading the singing, and he told me about Moody. I applied and was accepted and came up and was a voice major. I was a music major at the Institute, and during those days I sang with some of the student music groups that were on radio. That's how I got my start, really, with WMBI. But the thing that I think I learned very quickly at Moody was how God can take ordinary people and when they're dedicating their abilities, their gifts, their talents to Him, how He can take those people and cause them to do just incredible things. I mean, I'm amazed. I think of people who, when they started out, were very ordinary. I'm thinking again of Bob Murphy. I'm thinking of Mike Kellogg. People like this. Aunt Teresa Warman, another one. Just ordinary people, but look what God did through these people. Just absolutely amazing. So that was a real lesson for me to be dedicated to whatever the Lord had gifted you to be able to do. But I think of Mike Kellogg, for instance. Here he started out, came over here from Ohio, a little station over there where he was working, started working with us, wound up doing that night program, which of course put him on the national map. And he had just an incredible ministry, and here went to be with the Lord not too long ago. But before he passed away, he was inducted into the National Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Look at the ministry that Bob Murphy had, Terry Warman. When I was with the stewardship department, I visited a number of people over the years who told me it was listening to Terry Warman, or it was listening to Bob Murphy, or it was listening to Mike Kellogg when I came to know the Lord. So these people, not even knowing it, were responsible for a number of folks committing themselves to the Lord through their ministry. But
Jim, here's the dirty little secret. You were station manager, I believe, in part of the time when Bob was on the air. And you would get the phone calls from people saying, "Why did he say that?" And you would you would have to answer those questions, wouldn't you?
Well, Bob kind of flew by the seat of his pants. I mean, on the air, I used to get a kick out of watching him because he would come in the morning, and he had a file drawer on his desk. His wife would clip out all kinds of poems and stories and interesting articles. And this drawer was filled with them. He would reach in there, grab a handful of stuff, spread it out on the desk in front of him, and that was his program. And he would just go through this stuff.
Yes. And there would not be a Bob Murphy.
He did.
There wouldn't be a Bob Murphy without a Jesse Murphy, right?
Yes, Jesse was a big part of his ministry, no question. Yeah. But what an incredible ministry that man had, and then he became, he won that contest, Who Makes Your Morning in Chicago, one of the most popular morning radio hosts in the whole city.
So the lesson and the memory too is surrender. Whatever you have,
surrender.
Give it to Him and let Him do what He will with it, and glorify Him no matter what. Right?
Yes, and it goes all the way back to D.L. Moody.
Yes. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that simple boy from Northfield who wanted to make a lot of money selling shoes
That's right.
And God grabbed a hold of him. That same kind of thing is happening, on this side of the microphone, but it's also happening to listeners as they listen in. Aren't you glad for that ministry, Jim?
Yes, so glad.
Yeah. Barbara wrote, she said, God created every living thing, and all are worthy of our respect and care. All are worthy. Thank you, Uncle Bob Divide. That's what she got from him. No matter what trial, testing, turbulence, or tribulation comes into your life, God is faithful. Thank you, Mark Zimmerman. Obviously, Barbara is from Cleveland. You are not alone with your questions, your failings, your imperfections, your challenges, your frustrations, or your sorrows, nor are you required to put on a happy face. Just be honest with God, and you will always find answers in the Scripture, even if the answer is you don't need to know, or not now, or this is for your refining and the glory of God. That's how she answered our question today, a lesson from Moody Radio. And she says, thank you, Chris, for your remarkable guests who have brought hope, encouragement, and solace when needed most. I echo that. For Jim Wick, thank you, Jim. Bill Davis, Tricia was with us, Jim Marshall, Monte Larrick, my pal from the morning, and Gary Leonard from KMVI. Just a few of the voices through the years at Moody Radio. We are celebrating 100 years standing on the shoulders of giants, and we thank you for your support and coming along behind us, because we would not be here without your support. Our thank you right now, go to the website, Chris Fabry Live. This is Moody Radio, 100 years proclaiming the gospel, written by Kevin Mungans and Phil Shepard. Just go to chrisfabrylive.org. Have a great weekend. Come on back Monday for Chris Fabry Live, a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.